Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another Falconry video. Today's video is part 2 in talking about raising an imprint bird of prey. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. It helps me keep this channel up and going. There are so many weird rules and regulations about how many videos you have to get up and how many subscribers and all that, so it really does help me if you subscribe. My first video, I laid a lot of groundwork on some of the basics of raising an imprint. This video I want to go into, if you're going to get an imprint, you have to have a nest. You have to have an artificial nest. Now, you could maybe you're a falconer. Maybe you're a wildlife educator. Maybe you work at a zoo. Maybe you are a wildlife rehabilitator. And you find yourself, for whatever reason, needing to raise an imprint bird of prey. Now, that might be a falcon. It might be an owl. It might be a hawk, an eagle, a caracara, and a accipiter. Who knows? But these things are different. And their nest in the wild is different. And we're not necessarily trying to replicate a wild nest. A lot of things we do in falconry and wildlife education are aimed at replicating the wild experience. Not so with the nest. But let's take a look at it. Falcons don't build a nest. Big falcons like a peregrine falcon, lanner falcon, prairie falcon, these are birds that nest on the side of a cliff. They're like, here's a ledge. There's some gravel. I'm going to lay my eggs. Some smaller falcons also nest in hollow trees. Owls, anything goes. Think like a great horned owl. Great horned owl is going to nest in a hollow tree, a barn, side of a cliff, an old hawk nest. Could be anything, but they don't build a nest either. Meanwhile, most of your other raptors, not falcons, your budios, your Harris hawks, your accipiters, eagles, caracaras, all these other raptors typically do build a nest, a stick nest. Some of them are more of a platform. Eagle nests aren't very elaborate. They're just huge, but they're pretty flat. Some nests are very bowl-shaped and very custom-made to fit a certain number of young. But those nests are just a crib. They are not a home, and the young want to leave as soon as possible. A couple reasons. One of the benefits is raptors can't really smell, but predators can, right? So you might have a bobcat, a raccoon, a pine marten that smells, oh, I smell these birds up in the nest, and goes and kill them. So the sooner you're out of the nest, the better. Also, because it's just a crib, if you're, you have this baby hatch, then the next baby hatch, and the next baby hatches, the older one wants to get the edge on the younger ones and will be waiting outside of the nest, closer to where mom and dad fly in with food to try to get food before its siblings. So it's normal for a raptor to try to leave its nest. You are raising an imprint. Your nest is a matter of a few weeks. You're not keeping this bird in there for very long. But what are we going to do? First of all, as far as just basic hardware, there's sort of three main ones people normally do. The first one is the stick nest, and this is what I used to do all the time when I was a young falconer, and I was like, oh boy, I'm getting a baby Cooper's hawk, or I'm gonna get an owl. And so I'd take like a plastic basket, and I'd take willow branches, and I'd weave a beautiful nest with a little bowl shape for them. That was perfect. They could sit their head on the edge. And a lot of work. And it's like, hey, it's what the wild birds do, so it's got to be the best thing, right? Well, not really. Birds usually are wired to poop over the edge. So in other words, if they need to go to the bathroom, they're like, oh, and they'll back their backside up and go to the bathroom over the edge. It's sort of wired into them. It's not just birds of prey. Most birds are that way, even little songbirds. They know to scoot to the edge, go to the bathroom over, so that you're keeping the nest clean. We have no reason to think it's a conscious thought. It just seems like it's an instinctive thing that's wired within. But even with that, stick nests tend to get messy quick, and they are harder to clean, right? But that is an option. You can make a stick nest of some kind. Option number 2 is using pea gravel, which is pea-sized, gravel, this small gravel. And usually you'll take some sort of Rubbermaid container, a little plastic Tupperware thing, or maybe like a water dish, big old water dish from a farm store, put pea gravel in there. And this is often used with people raising falcons. And the thinking is, hey, when they're nesting on a ledge, it's just gravel. Pea gravel is so small that it kind of mushes and gives. So surprisingly, even though it's rocks, it actually offers a degree of support and softness, which seems strange, but it actually does. And so a lot of people will do that. I don't really do that. There's nothing wrong with it. Usually people who do that have a big old bag of pea gravel, and when there's some poop, they take maybe a little kitty litter scoop out the poop and the gravel it was on, put a little more in, and that seems to work. And then the third way is just same thing, some sort of plastic container that you just put towels in and you just rotate those towels out. Now, I'm lazy. A lot of people will wash the towels. I'm like, nah, that's gross. I'll just save old clothing throughout the year, old t-shirts and stuff, and old towels that I want to get rid of, and I will just put them in when they're messy, throw them out, put new ones in. And that works just fine for me. You don't have to be any more elaborate than you need to. But that being said, what about the size and the shape? Well, remember, there's several reasons for this. You do not want to be picking up this imprint and hauling it around itself. If there is a reason to move it, if you can, it is best to kind of coax it and scoot it off of something, pick up the bedding, get it out, scoot it back over. If you do have to pick up this baby for any reason, you need to support it. That is not a natural experience for the bird at this age. And so you want to go under the legs and make sure they feel full support and that you're holding them so they can't leap out or harm themselves in any way. And if you have to do that for whatever reason, a medical reason, who knows, do it as minimally as possible and as quickly as possible. So, but as far as that shape, a couple things. You remember, you're trying to acclimate and socialize this bird. You want this bird to be with you as often as possible without food being directly related. Because if the only time the bird sees you is with food, it's going to imprint incorrectly and become aggressive and vocal. You don't want that. You want minimal vocalization, and you want the bird its only aggression to be directed towards prey. And so have some sort of object that you can haul with you everywhere you can go. Let that bird see and experience everything. So for me, I want something that'll fit on my couch. I want something that I can have ride with me to work. So that's a factor in on the size. Now, what about the height of the sides? Well, remember, very quickly, they're going to start wanting to wander. So even if you have very high sides, if the higher the sides, the less they can see the world around. So my first week, usually I have fairly high sides. They can see up, and then I start to put it down lower and have a bigger, lower-sided container that's made out of plastic. And again, with just the bedding is just old towels and old t-shirts that I can throw away. But with a lot of raptors, especially hawks and eagles, you don't want to bring them food. You want to try to avoid that. You want to hopefully bring food to them. So you got to figure out a system where, do I have a plate of food in another room that they're sitting on the edge of my plastic container and I walk it in and they're like, and they lean over and eat the food. Something along those lines reinforces the idea of, you're later on going to be on my fist, we're going to see prey, and you're going to leave me to acquire food, as opposed to flying to me for food, which with an imprint can lead to aggression on you instead of prey, which is not what we want. But there's another thing to consider. There's things that were going to be in this bird's life that we want it to acclimate to. Maybe a hood, maybe a lure. So I like to have sort of a double wide, what I would call, container. Big enough that, the bird's sitting over here on this side. Maybe over here I have a plate of food readily available so the bird can eat whenever it wants. Maybe I have the hood so it can get familiar with the sight of a hood and not be afraid of it. And maybe I have the lure. Now, I've mentioned in my last video, I like to feed off of the lure, but even if I'm not, depending on the species, I want that lure in there. So they visually are always seeing lure, lure, lure. This is something familiar. This is something I associate with home, security, and with food being present. Because for me, retrieval with the lure is excruciatingly important. For a lot of people, again, I've mentioned this in other videos, a lure is just, it's a moderate retrieval. That I want it to be a guarantee that when my bird's grown up, when it sees that lure, it's going to come instantly. So keeping that lure in with the bird is a great way to make sure that from the youngest of age, they have that visual image imprinting on their mind of, lure, good, I want that. And that's very important. So these are just kind of the basics of that bedding. very quickly they're going to start leaving the nest, trying to wander around your house. And that is a whole new experience that will come more quickly than most people anticipate if it's your first time with an imprint. So I will have a video coming up that will explain what to do in that situation, because it is a very vital time and you've got to do it right. And as my young falcon, a yark here, is going to be reaching that age soon, I will demonstrate what I personally do with that, and you can come along for that journey. So let me know down in the comments what you have used, if you've raised an imprint before, what you like to use for a nest. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong way. I love to hear new ideas. Let me know your questions and comments, and hope this video is useful to you. And as always, happy hawking.